The decision is in. Iowa will remain with Spencer Petras at quarterback this week, at least according to the depth chart and Spencer Petras earlier today. Myself and LeShun Daniels will talk about that, the broken Iowa offense, what can change, and a whole lot more. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.
Our Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Trent Condon. He is LeShun Daniels, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen each and every day, available wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, and trying to get to that 1,000 subscribers. Just click the subscribe button right now and help us out as we approach that number. LeShun, on the heels of a tough loss to Iowa State, 10-7, the final. We talk here on a Tuesday. This is press conference day. This is the day that we get to hear from the players. And a little bit later this afternoon, we'll get to hear from Kirk Ferentz. But certainly an interesting one. Before we get into all that and a look forward to what it's going to be, let's take a look back in a disappointing effort against Iowa State. 150 yards of total offense. A bunch of that came in that ridiculous, crazy final drive of the game. After the opening possession, where they got the short field after the block punt, scored on 2 plays. That was it. Didn't score another point the rest of the way. The final 57 minutes and change, they were shut out. Where do you go, LeShun? What can you do? Takeaways from Saturday.
Oh, where'd that come from? So yeah, it's tough to say. It really is tough to say. I mean, like early in the game, thought things were going to go going well. Obviously, the first opportunity on offense that we had, able to move the ball very well. Offensive line was getting an excellent push up front, right? Creating massive holes, right? Made it really easy for offense go in and put it in the end zone for a touchdown, which was great. And then like after that, like that was it, right? You couldn't put together anything else offensively. Run game still isn't there where it needs to be, and in the pass game, again, we still can't complete a bunch of our day one install stuff, and we had all those opportunities on a short field, and frankly, just didn't take advantage of it. So right now, it's really tough to say. Again, it's back to the drawing board again, and looking at taking a long, hard look at everyone. Everyone needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror. Like, hey, where can we be better? Right, all the way from offensive line to the skill positions that are out there, to quarterback to OC to the head man. Right, everyone's got to take a look at themselves and figure out where to go. Because see, right now, offense as a whole is just struggling, and it put the defense in a really tough spot. I mean, I think Iowa State had almost 40 minutes of time of possession, which is very tough on defense. And granted, a bunch of that time of possession came on that 99 yard, like 12-minute drive. Again, credit to Iowa State, right? They didn't play a clean game, but they made the plays when it did matter. So, but offensively, yeah, it's tough. It's really hard to watch right now because all the other phases are making plays pretty much all the way throughout the field. I see kicking situation right now still isn't. It's not the best as it's been in years past, and as far as field goal kicking goes. But that said, the other phases, they really are holding up their end of the bargain, and a defense holding a team to 10 points should be more than enough for a team like Iowa to be able to get a victory.
Yeah, that's the frustration is now you got to L there. And, I thought this would be maybe what pushed it over the edge, what leads into a possible change. It's been so much at the quarterback position, but LeShun, you said it. This goes around to the whole offense. This isn't just one guy that is struggling. This is an offense as a whole. And, going back and rewatching the South Dakota State game, I came away maybe more upset at Spencer after watching it as opposed to Brian Ferentz. I thought he called a decent game, at least for his standards, against South Dakota State. That was not the case at all against Iowa State. I thought Brian had one of his worst game calls that he has had, putting the team in just in tough situations. Late in the game, you get that second down and a yard after finally picking up 9 yards on a run. You go to the jet sweep that gets hit with the loss. You're looking at a 3rd and 6 after that. It didn't make sense. And this goes into putting together an offense. Look, you're working right now on the new college football game for EA Sports, right? I grew up playing that. I grew up playing Madden. We all think if you played those games, you think you know how to be a coordinator. It's not just picking plays out of, a design sheet of 100. Coordinating an offense, there's so much more into it. And that's the part that I think, Brian, there's more to it. Ken O'Keefe, I remember the way that he would set things up in a different way, and he would be doing things early to set up something later on. I don't get that we're doing that with Brian Ferentz. Even Greg Davis, who did it for a number of years, and you played under Greg, it seemed like at least there was a theory about what they're trying to do. We could complain about things and not going its way, but there was at least a theory behind it. Right now, what's the theory? What is this Iowa offense under Brian Ferentz? What are they trying to do? I can't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm really like kind of right there with you, like at this point in time. I mean, we've seen like the offense over the past 5 years, right? And usually in years past, right, before Brian became the OC, like for the most part, there was a pretty solid identity offensively, right? You could see from the Hawkeyes, right? You knew that, right? They were going to run zone run game, power, and they were going to try to stay ahead of the change, and on third downs, right, complete quick passes, right, to be able to move the football and obviously take advantage of our tight ends, which have been fantastic throughout the years. Like I feel like right now it's just kind of there's nothing, right? There's nothing there, right? The run game for the past few years hasn't been great, and we've had some really good running backs over the past few years, right? And even offensive line play hasn't been the way as it should be, and has as it's been in the past, right? Really over the past couple of years, even with Tyler Linderbaum, leading the charge last year. So right now there's no identity, I feel like, for this Hawkeye offense, and it shows on Saturdays, right? Because now, like when the going gets tough, right, and we need a play from the offense, like there's nothing where I feel like watching it currently as a fan where it's like this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do in the situation because they've done this so well in the past. And we expect them to convert on this. Like right now, like I feel like there's nothing, right? I mean, whether it be again on that second and short, right? You call reverse, and I'm all for taking like a shot or something on a second and short because right, you anticipate, right, we're still going to have third and short if we don't get it, but again, like there's no identity, like to the point like now we're trying to trick plays on second and short, and then we're on the goal line. And although I love my fullbacks, right, I'm never gonna talk my fullbacks,
Yeah.
but like we're on the goal line, we're at the 1 yard line. That's typically a spot where we're handing off to a running back, right, running some type of basically slant play right into the end zone, right, that we convert a bunch of times, or we're just quarterback sneaking it.
Yeah.
And right now in the run game, like we're not, like there's no identity there, so we're not doing that. And then in the pass game, we already know the pass game's been talked about um more than enough times, right? Like not only can we can't even complete like our short game, right, and those easy passes, like we can't even think about taking shots because we can't even complete the basic stuff. So I feel like right now offensively there's no identity with the Hawkeye team. The offense looks very different in a sense, as it's been in years past, where it's like we can look at the offense and know like, hey, they're not going to be spectacular, but they're not going to be bad, and we know that like what's going to come, and they're going to be pretty successful at it. Like right now, I feel like we're not getting any of that.
Can't make the makeables, and that makes it incredibly difficult when you're a program like Iowa. Well, we're going to talk about that program. Go inside. Back when LeShun was playing a few years back, what was like when things were going rough? It's rough right now, yet hearing the guys earlier today, the players from Spencer Petras to Riley Moss and a few others, You're in lockdown. Fort Kinnick, that's what we always joked and called it. The walls were up and it's hard to get inside it. We'll go to a player's perspective when we come back. This is the LeShun Daniels along with Trent Condon on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Well, speaking of Locked On Hawkeyes, we are glad to have you aboard with us. Can't do it without some of our great friends, including Upside. What's Upside? Well, it's an app that is easy to use. It is great to help you with getting cash back. I just started using this within the last couple of weeks. Use it for gas. I've used it for a night out one night, a quick bite to eat after work. It works great. It is incredibly easy to do. Get started. Download the free Upside app. Use promo code Locked On and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business. Pay as usual with your credit or debit card. It's that easy, and you get paid. Upside users are earning more than $1 million each and every week. Download the free Upside app. Use promo code Locked On and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Again, $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using that promo code LOCKED. Thanks to Upside being with us here today. All right, LeShun. Now we roll through here, and one place I wanted to go is I've been in the media now for 2 decades. I've been talking about Hawk on the radio going back, I think 2003 is when I began my radio career. So I've been doing it for a long time. And the insular nature of Hawkeye football, it's very interesting talking to some of my friends that went through the program that were walk-ons, going through it, some people that I met afterwards that played inside the program. So coming to you, we always hear about, it's about the teamwork and the camaraderie and building this brotherhood and all these different things. It's just baffling to me when I hear some of the things like today. Well, we don't really hear what's going on the outside. In today's world of social media, how do you guys not hear? Or is that just, again, like we've talked about before, that's just something more you guys are coached to say?
I mean, it's definitely a little both, right? It's definitely a little both. We are coached to say, like, right, to block out the noise, right, and all that stuff. And in general, right, we block out the noise, right? Like when we're in meetings and stuff like that, like we don't talk about like what's happening like really outside the building, right? Like we don't talk about things that people are saying in the media, people are saying on social media. Like those aren't things that we talk about in meetings, and really it never even gets brought up, whether it's by players or by the coaches, right? It's just not something that we do. Um, so we keep that part of it like locked down. Like obviously, like after that though, and I mean, especially now with the guys now be a little bit more active on social media now, right? There's not really like the that kind of block that we had when I was when I was in school. They probably hear a little bit more of it, but big thing is like when we're in those when we're getting interviewed, like we don't even want to talk about that stuff anyway. So a bunch of the conversations ends up coming back to, yeah, like we tune out that noise, like we don't pay attention to really what you guys are saying, or what fans are saying on social media, right? Basically all that stuff gets blocked out. And I'm sure the players, like they see it um a bunch, I'm sure, right? People are always tweeting at players during the game, right? Or commenting on their Instagram or whatever, right? And people like we do see this stuff, right? Like we know it's no secret, right? It's I mean, you'd basically have to be we'd have to be in the complex like 24/7 lockdown, right? Basically with no access to our phones besides texting and calling, right? So we do see that stuff, but we do also realize, like, again, that stuff doesn't matter, right? In the grand scheme of things. Like, yeah, obviously, we would much rather everyone be talking great about us, right? Because it's much better, right? It tells you that you're obviously in a better situation than them talking bad about certain players or certain situations. But like we know that stuff doesn't matter, right? And focusing on what we can actually control and actually do, like within the building, within the day to day, is really the stuff that matters. So, yeah, I would say that we are a bunch. We definitely are coached to say that we are blocking out the noise. Um, and we do hear it, but we do also realize, like, in the what to accomplish the goals that we're trying to get to, like listening to that stuff and feeding into that type of energy does the team really no good.
Social media, when you were around, Twitter was not allowed. I'm sure there are a few guys that worked around that one way or the other. There's no doubt about that. Instagram maybe has grown into a much bigger thing. I'm trying to remember back now. Facebook was a thing. Now that's an old person thing. And that's changed. It's always evolving, right? It's always changing. We got TikTok now. It's something that's always kind of a moving target there. But ultimately, if you want to hear things, you want to see things, you can go there and you can set up notifications to block things, and you don't have to see it if you don't want to. The one I always wonder about, and maybe this is because this became a bigger thing when I was in college, is message boards. Message
Mm.
boards are something that I'm sure, or at least when you were playing, were a thing because social media maybe is not even at the level it is here today. We're not going back very far, but also when you're first being recruited, right? You're getting calls from rivals and Scout and 24/7 in these places, and they're talking to you, and hey, you want to see your picture up there on the front of the website, and you go there, and hey, what are they saying about me? Those types of things. Message boards. Did you guys, when you're inside the complex, when you're playing for the Hawkeyes, did you go on them? Did you start rumors on there? Did you have fun? What was it about you guys and message boards? Was there any kind of connection once you got to the campus?
I would say for the most part, no. Like for the most part, we didn't check like the message boards and stuff. Uh, like I know, like me personally, I would every now and again because I mean,
Yeah.
my dad, I mean, being obviously a Buckeye, right? Like they're big on message boards and stuff. So like, I've had an idea of like, okay, obviously like stuff gets talked about. So like, what are they talking about on the Iowa message boards and whatnot? So every now and again, I would check it out, see what stuff they're actually talking about, see what stuff actually makes sense, and what stuff is completely out of left field, which was a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Uh, but for the most part, like the message boards don't get looked at as much. Like didn't like when I was playing, like we didn't really pay attention to it as much. Because once you got to Iowa, like it was like message boards kind of stuff like really wasn't um really as important at that point
Mhm.
anymore because like obviously like now you're already at the school, right? Like it's not like fans are gonna be hyping up now, like talking about like, yeah, we want to get this kid here or whatever. But yeah, I feel like it wasn't a thing as much. Like if we were gonna get like hear outside noise or anything like that, it was definitely gonna come from Twitter or like because I mean, like, so like when we were in school, like we couldn't tweet, but a lot of players still had like their Twitters from high school or whatever.
Yeah.
So like obviously, like if you got tweeted at, like you would see it, right? You get the
Still see it. Yeah.
notification. Or a lot of times, right, people would comment. A lot of times, like if you were gonna hear noise, you were gonna see it from your Instagram comments or people DMing you on Instagram. So like that's a lot of times like where like a lot of that noise and outside stuff was gonna come from.
Interesting. Well, it is a world that is continually evolving. It's a different place, certainly here today. And Spencer Petras, well, I'm sure he was dinged a time or two in that notification here over the first couple of games. We're going to wrap things up talking about just that. Spencer Petras getting ready. He is going to get the start once again, at least the latest from the University of Iowa in the football complex. That's as we continue here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. All right, final segment here on a Tuesday. Locked On Hawkeyes, Trent Condon, LeShun Daniels with you. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen each and every day. And of course, you can find us on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. LeShun, talking about the quarterback spot. We opened the show today talking about, hey, there's a lot of reasons for their struggles. The run game needs to be better. Offensive line needs to make strides. You have to get some kind of help at wide receiver. But the decision to continue to trot out Spencer Petras once again. The Bluebirds were out for the second straight week, much deserved. Arlen Bruce, the only scholarship wide receiver that played any significant minutes. He was targeted 11 times. He had one catch, one drop, one catch, and 9 other targets in the game. The passes were off base. The coordinating was not very good, but ultimately it comes down to the most important position in sports. When you see your quarterback, your leader, your captain, your guy that I think everybody wants to rally around on an offense, and he's struggling like this, How difficult is that? And how difficult do you think this is right now for these Iowa players dealing with the guy and Spencer Petras that just is not right?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a tough spot to be in, right? For sure, right? Because obviously everyone talks about Spencer and how great of a kid he is and all those different things, right? And knowing that he's your teammate and he's been the guy for a while, like it's and especially him being a senior, you're like, well, like we want to rally behind this guy. Like we want him to play well, right? We want to go ahead and hear people saying good things about him, right? And putting us in positions to win football games. And when he's struggling, really as much as he has been, really feel like over the last um, 12 months, to be honest.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, it it puts the players in a tough spot, right? Because I'm sure they're going to class and stuff, and people are talking about, yeah, like defense is fantastic, but that Petrus guy, like he really sucks or whatever, right? Like I'm sure that stuff that happens all the time because heck, it happened when I was in
Mhm.
school and Rudock was the quarterback, right?
Right. Yep.
So it puts everyone in a tough position because it's something that another thing that they have to focus on, things that they have to talk about, right? Because I mean, there's guys on the field that were on the field on Saturday that were doing phenomenal things, that were just flying around, especially on the defensive end, right, making a bunch of plays. Um, but that stuff gets minimized and not talked about because again, all the conversations end up coming back to the quarterback, right? So it puts it really puts everyone in a tough spot because you want to see him do well. You want to see your teammates do well. And when a guy is struggling so much and you want to help him, right? But the only way really as your teammate that you can help him is by making sure that you're obviously doing your job, right? In practice on the field, on the film room, weight room, and on game days, and then just trying to encourage uh Spencer as much as possible, and obviously not talking bad behind his back or anything like that. So it's a frustrating spot, I'm sure, for everyone on the team, especially Spencer. Right? I'm sure no one's more upset about their play than Spencer is. Um, but yeah, I'm sure all teammates are really in a tough spot right now. Just trying to focus on their jobs and things that they have to do, right? And while trying to encourage Spencer, right? And making sure that, hey, I'm doing my job, make sure that the group I'm with, right, whether it's the running backs or linebackers or DBs or whatever, right? We're focused on doing our jobs and let the quarterbacks and the coaches kind of take care of that.
Final thing. So earlier this week, I had a contact in the athletic department and was told one of the reasons that the coaches are so much higher on Petrus is, of course, practice, which we've heard. I mean, Kirk has mentioned that. He also said after the game last week, hey, you guys just see Saturday, we see all throughout the week. But thing that I heard is that Petrus puts in a lot more time inside of breaking down film, doing those things, and he doesn't take the chances on the practice field that Alex Padilla does, and that's what makes him a better quarterback in the mind of the coaches, and especially Kirk, is because of those two things. The practice part of it, how important at Iowa compared to the levels you played at? You're in the NFL. You were in camps there. Of course, you played high level high school football as well. Is practice more important at Iowa than it is, you think, at some other places?
Hmm. Hmm. That is a really, really good question. Really good question. I've actually never been asked before. And thinking about that, I would say, I would say yes. I would say yes. Maybe the only place where it's very similar was probably New England.
Yep.
Um, right? Like obviously, like in practice, like you gotta be on it, right? Like every practice, whether it's at Iowa, or in the NFL, especially in New England, right? Especially like if you're in pads, right, and you're one of the people that are hitting, right? Like it's basically like you're treating it like a game, right? So you got to go out there, you got to make sure that you're on the ball, right, and you're making plays, when those opportunities come up. So my guess is that Spencer in practice is probably back there looking like a diet Peyton Manning, right?
Mm.
I'm sure, like dissecting defense, calling out blitzes, making sure that the lines going to the right spot, running backs going to the right spot, and then he's making the right reads, right? Passing the football and making the right audibles and things of that nature. So, yeah, I would say that practice was definitely very, very important at Iowa, and it didn't matter. It really didn't matter how talented you were, right? A bunch of you guys have seen it throughout the years, right? Where you guys are like, "Whoa, why wasn't this guy playing?" You know, X years before, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
"Well, he didn't really learn how to practice very well until this past year, right?" And that's something that the coaches take very, very important because, again, that the Iowa program in general, right, when it comes to football, right, they're very, very conservative, and where defensively, right, the objective is to, hey, limit the big plays, make the offense drive down the field to beat you, and then offensively, right, making sure that we don't make mistakes, right, don't turn over the football, and we're able to sustain drives, right, by using the run game and using the short, quick game in the pass. So when you get that, especially knowing Coach Ferentz has been doing that for the past 24 years, it's like, well, okay, the players got to kind of follow that same methodology as well, and that goes by practicing well because they don't want to put you out there, right, knowing all the risk that comes with winning football games, especially in conference play, of putting a guy out there that hasn't shown consistent practice habits and consistent performance in practice.
It's crazy. Well, that's where we are right now. The gamers, the guys that play better in games at the Iowa program, doesn't sound like they get much of a shot. Well, we got plenty more to come here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. LeShun, we will talk to you again on Friday. We'll make some picks. I think I got you last week. We'll have to take a look back at the numbers. I think I got you by a game last week, but we'll make our picks presented by BetOnline. We'll have some fun with that, and we'll see. We're going to hear from Kirk Ferentz later today. We will hear officially what the decision is at the quarterback position. And is it over? Is this week over and it's just going to be Petrus? Is it open this week? We'll find out a whole lot. Talk to you on Friday, LeShun.
Yep, for sure. Go Hawks
All
as
right.
always.
Go Hawks as always. This has been the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.